From the platform of CFO, Mecca CFO Alliance and Mecca CFO Academy, I have started to give them some coaching and training because I was interacting with thousands of professionals. And I created this framework you are looking at your screen 3 years ago. This is a C-level leadership competency model. So this is not related or applied only to finance. This is applicable to all functions. And mainly, there are 3 dimensions of the leadership: personal leadership, public leadership, and strategic leadership. And the main idea here is that, look, in order to become an effective leader, you first have to work on yourself, personal leadership. That is where you start. As a matter of fact, expert says that 90% of our successes and failures in life are because of our internal mindset or in our inner game, our values, our beliefs, the way we think. Those are related up to the extent of 90% for our success and failures in life. That is how important it is. So in this framework, one dimension is personal leadership, which includes basically work-life integration and peak performance and some other tools and techniques like emotional intelligence, personal branding. One thing I would ask you to notice here in this leadership framework, that all the attributes, whether it's personal, public, or strategic, they are boiling down into one thing at the bottom, which is influence. And influence is so important that I would say all of your life, work-wise, family-wise, personal life-wise, it all depends on your influence. What makes you successful and failed in your life is your influence. I meet many CFOs and C-level executives, and they share their frustration that, look, in my company, there are a lot of problems, and I exactly know how to solve those problems or how to really address them. But their frustration was that my CEO does not listen to me. And I said that I fully believe, fully trust that you have perfect solutions or good solutions to solve those problems, but you have a little problem there. And that problem is that probably you don't have influence on your CEO. If there is no influence, there is no communication, because CEO is really not listening to you. Influence is the vehicle which carries your ideas to the other party. And if you are influential, you will notice that people listen to you very carefully, and most of the time they really agree with your point of view. So influence is the key of leadership, and we'll talk about this. So all this scenario, today we observe, generally speaking, I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but those are very few. A stressful environment, work pressures, uncertainty, this is common in the workplace. So what are the basic reasons or causes of this? So number one, increasing pressures, mainly because that businesses have learned to do more with less. All the economic crises, whenever they happen, businesses try to survive with less resources. And that is how they learn how to survive in difficult times. So in 2008 to 2009 global financial crisis, for example, financial industry significantly suffered. Thousands and thousands of people lost their job. So there was expectation that this is temporary, and in few years the industry would recover and all the jobs would come back. Now, industry did recover in few years, but all the jobs did not come back because businesses realized that they could survive with less resources. Why should they hire? And who was very happy with this? Shareholders. Shareholders were very happy. So this becomes another standard and another benchmark for other businesses to follow. So that is one thing, that there are not many jobs are coming up as much as should come based on the business growth. On the other hand, there is oversupply of talent. Because of the globalization, awareness, commercialization, whatever you call it, there are more and more qualified, professionally and certified people available in the market, and their certificates and degrees have been diluted a little bit because of the abundance. So on the one hand, there is oversupply. On the other hand, their businesses are not hiring as much as they should. It has created pressure on the people who are holding the jobs, but basically leads to lack of job security. So with this phenomenon of oversupply and less demand, talent has basically become a commodity. And all employers know that very well, that it's a commodity. So they are really not hesitant to hire and fire, because even if they let their best talent go, they know that there would be 10 people line up for that job and probably 5 of them would be better and cheaper, which has resulted in the lack of job security. So everybody is concerned about their jobs. Experts are also saying that based on the changes which are happening nowadays, it is expected that the young professionals today will have 12 to 15 job changes over their career lifetime. 12 to 15, that's a big number. My father, all of his life, worked only for one company, 40 years in the same company. But that's really a history. I don't expect that for anyone to really experience that. So all jobs are temporary. It could be 1 year, it could be 10 years or 15 years, but it is very much expected that you will change your job whether you want it or not. That again, another uncertainty created on your mind. And then fast-paced environment, everything moving so fast that it's really becoming very difficult to keep pace with that. Now think of the changes happening on a technological side. Who thought about a model Uber has introduced in the market? Uber has changed the lives of the taxi drivers or taxi business. What about Airbnb? Airbnb is significantly impacting the hospitality industry. Now, look where you are. You might say that, look, my industry is very stable. There is not much changes and probably I will have my job secured for 10, 15 years. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? Look at all the technology like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, robotics. Things are happening very fast that it's very difficult to really predict it. So that's another dose of uncertainty, adding pressure to the professionals. I'm not sure if you watched the launch of new iPhone from Apple yesterday. We are talking of fast pace. Now they try to keep these things extremely confidential. The market is so impatient that I think more than half of the things were already released in the market before they could launch it. That is the fast pace we are talking about. And with all this fast paced, of course, we need to do a continuous learning. That's also a pressure that professionals are already working hard, and then they don't find time to really learn new things. And that becomes a little bit more additional pressure on them. And then the generation gap is widening. So look at millennials. Millennials have a very different lifestyle. They work very differently, very fast paced. And in our lifetime, probably we have seen most changes. I think the most impacted generations are generation X and Y, the people who are in their 30s and 40s, and also 50s, if you are still working. They are most impacted because the millennials coming very fast in the work stream, and they are going to create more pressure through their supply on the existing job holders. Now, I'm working nowadays a lot on the technology. So I have 3 laptops, 1 Mac, 1 PC, and a lot of other things. If I have any problem on my Mac, I ask my 11-year-old daughter. And most of the time, she is able to fix the problem very quickly. That is how fast they are learning and creating pressures on their adults. So bottom line is, we are living in uncertainty. And that uncertainty has significantly created stress for most of us. Now, it is said that you cannot solve the problems at the same level where they are created. So, of course, these are macro level changes. These are environmental changes. You cannot really bring them back. But what you could do is really, you have full control on yourself. And probably we can do some better job in managing our pressures, managing our work and life balance or integration, whatever you call it. But you need a different perspectives. You need to change your perspective. You need to change your thinking. You need to change your mindset. Because as I said, you cannot solve this problem at the same level at which they are created. So pay attention to this particular slide. Big picture mindset. So I know many people live in their jobs day in and day out, and they cannot think beyond their job, but just come out for the time being and think in a bigger way at the macro level. So these are the realities of life we need to accept, not only accept, but we need to internalize and integrate in our thinking. So jobs is not our life. Job is part of life. Very important. It's a bigger perspective. Because as I mentioned, that reality is experts are saying that you're expected to make 12 to 15 changes in your career lifetime. So we need to be prepared for those changes. I mean, as I said, that these changes are maybe voluntary or non-voluntary, but you need to be prepared. Losing a job and getting a new job is not easy. It requires a lot of energy and really focus and strength. So are we ready for that? And gaps will happen once you lose a job for whatever reason. It's seldom possible that the next day you are starting a new job if you lose involuntarily. Are we prepared to really have the gaps? By the way, from a new hiring employer point of view, it's okay to have a gap nowadays. I mean, in older time, it was considered a stigma that why did you have a gap? Today, that's not the relevant or valid question. So gaps are okay. The only thing I'm talking about is, are we prepared for it in terms of the energy and stress and also financial resources? Second big reality is that always try to create a second source of income. You need to prepare for bad times and good times, and people forget it. When they are good times, they are enjoying good times, and they think it would always remain like that. Well, reality is changing. So good times are there for you to really do something about the bad times which may happen. So always try to make investments if you can. Try to develop a habit of savings, regular savings. And also, if you have a hobby, you have some time available, try to do some part-time services like training, like coaching, like helping someone else against small money, or even running a business on the side. Because with the technology, there are not a lot of business models nowadays which you can run online or from your home as a side business. You don't have to leave your job. You can start on the side. So think outside job. Your economic activity should also expand outside job. And by this suggestion, I do not mean that you are not paying attention to your job. Job is very important for you and you need to be fully dedicated, but be wise and prepare yourself for any contingencies which might happen. Another interesting reality of today's life is that the quality of life we are enjoying nowadays, whether you are in Middle East or Pakistan or USA or Europe, the category or the class of people we represent, we are expected to live up to 85. Now, my father passed away 2 years ago. He passed away at the age of 94. I hope I have some genes from him. But that's a reality that 85 is pretty much expected. Now, think of this. Based on the demand and supply of talent, it's difficult, rather impossible, to survive in corporate beyond 60. So no matter what you do, even if there is a retirement or no retirement, 60 is probably the time where you have to really leave to create a space for younger professionals. If that is true, if you believe that, you have another 20, 25 years in your life. That's a long time. Have you planned for it? What are you going to do in that 25 years, quarter of a century? Normally, we don't think of that. And if you're thinking of really a happy retired life, that you will have a lot of money and enjoy life, well, here is the statistics I would like to share with you. In USA, those business executives who have a very active lifestyle, and when they retire in anticipation of having a relaxed, no work, happy retired life, they die on the average in 5 years. Because it's not about money, it's not about comfort, it's about the feeling that you are no more valuable in this world. You are no more required. That kills you, especially the men. So think of an activity where you would feel continuously to contributing to the world. So you remain important, at least in your eyes. And finally, this is the time, whether you are in your 30s or 40s, this is the time that you integrate your career with your life vision. As I said, we have one life. You cannot really live your life in compartments, 9 to 5 compartment. This is my work and then enjoying my life. We are one. We are knowledge workers. We think from our brain most of the time. Brain is the main area where we work. You cannot split your brain into your work and personal life. And your career is basically a pathway to your life vision. Okay, so here is work-life integration strategy or approach, you would call it. And this also gives you some clarity. So as I said, I'm a big believer in the mindset, internal game. I'm a big believer in it, really. And I really believe that 90% of your success failures are because of your mindset. So this is a starting point. You need to work on your inner game or mindset. That's a start. And then you, based on that, you clear your thoughts. You have a very clear understanding. This helps you move into the work-life integration, which leads to peak performance, by the way. So peak performance, you cannot achieve that without really working on your mindset or inner game. That's very clear. Then it moves from the work-life integration and peak performance. There are two areas you use mainly. These are approaches mainly to deal with the world. Your personal branding, how people see you. Now you have some influence on your personal brand, but it is on the people. How do they perceive you? How do they look at you? How do they see you? And then you have more control on your relationship and networking, because they create a perceived value for you. But when you deal with them, when you relate with them, when you communicate and talk, that is how they confirm or they don't confirm their perceived value. So both things are very, very important and critical. And based on these two drivers, personal branding and relationship and networking, you create influence on the world. Now, it's again very broad picture. I'm not talking about in terms of the work environment details, but I hope you can relate the concept to your life. This is the work-life integration strategy or approach. Now, when you're working on your mindset and inner game and work-life integration and peak performance, that is your part of your personal leadership, the first two blocks at the bottom. And when you are working on the personal branding and relationship and networking, that is part of your public leadership. So now you can understand, you cannot jump into the public leadership without working on your personal leadership, right? It's sequential. It's logical. You need to work first your inner game mindset that gives you a lot of clarity and energy and saves your wasted energy. Enables you to do work at the peak performance level, integrating your life, your family, your work, everything. It's one life. And then using the weapons of personal branding and relationship and networking to create influence on the world, all the people outside you. If you have good influence, you are very successful. Rest of the things are details, basically. If you can comprehend this framework and apply it in your life, I'm sure you would be very successful. Now, your influence is all of your results. And many people really do a lot in their life, in their work life, professional life, but really do not reach to influence because they don't understand the critical importance of relationship and networking and personal branding. Some professionals think, oh, I'm working my job. I'm doing a very good work and that's all I need. Well, if you do 12 hours work in your office or in your cubicle, and it's really good work, but nobody knows about that work, most of it is being wasted. Because the CEO or the senior management would not reward you because they don't know you. They don't have the obligation to really understand what are you doing. You have to make effort. It's part of your job. It's communication. You do the good work and then you ensure that all the relevant people are informed, communicated about it so that they could know what value you can bring to the table. Very important. So personal marketing is not a bad thing. Personal selling is not a bad thing. It's a critical requirement of today's environment to be successful in life. Nothing wrong with it. So what we are realizing now is to establish your foundation. This is the sequence. Number one, setting up the inner game, developing the right mindset. That's number one, starting point. Number two, creating physical capacity. Now, many people will complain, well, look, I'm already working 14 hours. What do you expect me to do? Where do I find time to really work on my inner game? Well, you need to create capacity. You need to avoid daily firefighting, which is a wastage of your energy and time. So you need to take back your capacity. Many people are really doing more than what they're supposed to. Why don't you delegate? People in the middle level of their career, especially, have difficulty to delegate. And there is definitely a reason, lack of job security, but that's also prohibit them to really make further growth and progress. You need to be confident about yourself. So create capacity, number two, very important. And then create work-life integration. Stop living in 9-to-5 compartment. And this is mostly mental. As I said, that the people who believe in 9-to-5, they are watching their clocks already 2 hours before they leave. Everybody knows that. So it's not about 9 to 5, it's about creating value. All of you who are sitting on this webinar, you are not the junior level professionals, you are at least middle level. And your job demands a focus and concentration and dedication, not hours. You're not hired for your hours. You're hired to create value for your employer. That should be the mindset. And finally, to reach the peak performance, it's actually reaching to the self-actualization, if you are familiar with that term. And self-actualization is achieved when you exploit all of your potential. Whatever you are capable of, when you are able to apply in your life, that is where you reach to self-actualization. Now think of this, how much capacity you have and how much you are utilizing. How much potential you have and how much potential you are realizing in your life. And I also did some surveys about it, and I was surprised, rather shocked, that people have good belief and confidence on themselves. So they will say, I'm only working at 40% of capacity. So now they are already doing a lot of late hours, by the way. So someone who is doing late hours and then say that I'm working at my 40% capacity, what does it mean? It means that there's a lot of capacity being wasted. They have a potential to use their caliber and talent differently, but they are already being wasted in something else, and they don't feel they are being fully utilized. Okay, so onwards in this presentation, I'm going to talk about some of the tactics and the techniques and the approaches you could apply to implement the concept we have talked about. So until now, we have talked about some high-level framework and some rational, why should we do what we want to do? And now we are talking about the tactics and specific approaches. So I think everybody is familiar with the right brain and left brain, that we have the two thinking brains. Left brain is usually our logical brain, where we think analytically, rationally. And this is what we think we are, left brain or logical. But at the same time, we have very dominant other part of the brain, which is the right brain or emotional brain. Emotional brain does not think in logics. It's intuitive, it's random. So when you say that I feel in my heart, I shouldn't do that, that's your right brain, emotional brain. When you say that when I think from my top of the head, I think this should happen, that's your logical brain, right? And we all the time have this conflict in life, thinking from the left and right brain. Now what happens that most of the people, now this is a common phenomena, everybody has right and left approaches and brains, but most of the time people think that I'm logical. I make all decisions logically. Other people are emotional, I'm very rational. I make all buying decisions, all decisions in my life from my left brain. Well, reality is that we all are very emotional. And most of the decisions we make, we really make emotional. We make emotional decisions, and then we create a rational for it. Then we create a logic for it. That's how it works for most of the people, right? So when you buy a Rolex watch, maybe for $20,000, that's emotional because you're appealed by the brand, by the lifestyle. That's emotional side. But you create a logic. Oh, it's a very expensive watch. It's handcrafted. It takes 6 months or 1 year for people to make that, right? All these rational. This is exactly the seller want to think about it. So we all the time have the struggle between left brain and right brain. Now, other couple of examples from the real life is that your left brain would say, yes, you should go to gym if you are not going there. And you plan, you commit, everything you decide, and then the time you wanted to go in the morning, your right brain says, oh, I'll do it from tomorrow, or I'll do it later. Or probably I'm already doing dieting for the last 2 weeks, so probably I don't need to go that early. I'll think about it. That's your right brain, see? So you're not changing your logic, but somehow right brain is dominating you in thinking. Now, think of yourself. Look at this picture. So you see a big elephant, and you see a tiny, small rider on top of it. Now, for a few moments, think of yourself as you are sitting as a rider on the top of this elephant with your logical brain. So your logical brain is always with you, right? And think of the elephant, big elephant, giant elephant as your emotional brain, right? So your logical brain is in your control. It's sitting with you on the top of the elephant. But the elephant, your emotional brain, is a little uncertain. It may go into your direction you want to, or it may go in a different direction. So when you are trying to make a decision about going to gym, it's your logical brain said, perfectly, we are okay, we are committed, we are going to the gym starting tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning comes, elephant is saying, no, I'm not going there, right? Now, how do you control your elephant? That is what happens most of the time. You decided to do some dieting, and then a very delicious sweet dish came, and you tempted. That was your right brain. Your emotional brain wanted to try it right now. So the thing to understand here is that emotional brain is very powerful, very strong, and it's not bad all the time. Most of the time it's bad because we don't control it intentionally. But we can use it very powerfully for our benefit. Because again, imagine to this analogy, if this elephant you are sitting on top of, if it is going in the right direction where you want to, how powerful you feel, how much you could achieve with the strength of this elephant, if it goes in the right direction, right? So keep this concept in your mind. What is the common characteristic of these people? All of them are billionaires, right? But they are not only billionaires, they are all college dropout billionaires. Now, why it happened with so many people? These people made a decision to drop from the Ivy League colleges, many from the Harvard, at the peak of their life. Who would do that? So in their logical mind, it was not a right decision, right? Anybody would challenge it that why did you leave Harvard? Or people have hard time to get admitted over there. But these people have another side of their thinking, which was emotional. Their elephant was so strong, and their elephant was going in so much right direction that they felt they couldn't wait 4 years of college. They all have deep passion. Passion is emotional, right? Passion creates emotional energy. So they all were very passionate what they wanted to do in life, and they said, we one can't wait 4 years in college. Let me do it now. And rest is history, right? So what potential you have? You have the potential of having an elephant who could follow you. That elephant worked for these people. Why can't it work for you if you drive that elephant in the right direction? That is why it is very important to understand the mechanism, the working or the functionality of the three brains. Even simply become conscious, aware of it, you can exercise a lot of control on it. Another very interesting concept or idea about the brain and your mind. There is a concept in the experts called neuroplasticity. Now, in our brain, we have billions and billions of neurological pathways. Looks like something I'm showing on the screen, right? Billions and billions in average human being. And what happens that when you started to do something new, you're learning a language, you're learning a musical instrument, you're learning swimming, and you're looking new things, these are registered in the neural pathways. And if you do something repetitively again and again, it started to change those pathways, right? So think yourself that at some time of your life, you started to learn something, like bicycling or swimming or learning a musical instrument. It was very hard the first time, right? You didn't enjoy it. And then you continue to do it. But after a while, even driving, after a while, you started to feel very comfortable and you started to enjoy it. Why? Because it took some time for these neural pathways to readjust. When those neural pathways are readjusted to the new activity, it becomes very comfortable. Brain was prepared for it and you started to enjoy it. Nowadays, the top experts or the celebrity level of performers, they don't work on their skills. Or Olympians, for example, they don't work on their skills because they're already mastery level. What they work creating a mindset. They do these practices and exercises to train their brain for that performance, not physically. Physically, they are already trained. Now, why do we call sometimes that this player is in form, this player is not in form? It's all psychological, right? It's all mindset. So that's another thing. If you could force yourself consistently to do something regularly, in few days, usually this is 30 to 40 days, your brain, your neurological pathways are reformed and it becomes a lot more easier for you. This is what is said that if you practice something for 30, 40 days, you develop that habit. Okay, another concept for you to think from a life work point of view, and many people are misunderstanding this concept that look, I'm there for 9 to 5, I'm there for 8 hours, and I already work for long. It's not about working hours. It's about the value being created. So time is fixed. Nobody could complain in this world about time because this is the blessing God has given everybody equally, 24/7, whether it's a president of the United States or a street worker, everybody got the same. It's up to us. How do we utilize that time, right? So there are people who are paid $5 per hour, right? And then there are people like this. You see this picture on your screen? These people are making on the average $25,000 per hour. They probably have the same potential or maybe a little better. Physically, they are probably the same as everybody else. IQ level, by the way, is also not very different. There are studies that IQ level of average corporate person and the CEO of Fortune 500 company, there is not much difference. The main difference is in their EQ, emotional intelligence, how they behave, how they control their mind, how they really spend their life. That's the main difference. So you have number of hours, same. You can't complain for that. I don't have time. It's up to you. How do you use that time to create value? And the extent of the value really range from $5 to $25,000. So productivity mindset, very important. That solves basically more than half of your problems. Everybody can be productive. Nobody could complain that I'm not trained, I have this limitation or I don't have time. Everybody can do that. Number one, that's a mindset. Our decisions and choices are determined by our left brain and right brain. So you have some control over there. You can exercise control. Habits are basically shape our destiny. If you're not getting results, change your habit. Do something else. Keep trying, doing differently until you get the results. Internal chaos creates external chaos. Very clear. There is no doubt about it that if you are struggling in your life, first work on yourself from inside. And if we focus on our strengths and the opportunities around us, we can really compound our results. You need to have a consistent approach. And your future could be an extension of your past, or you could start a completely new future from tomorrow. As long as you are alive, as long as you are on the ground, there is full potential and opportunity for you to change your course. It's all up to you. And finally, growth is a natural human need. Now, first half of our life, we have a lot of growth. We are growing physically, mentally. We are going to college, universities. Somewhere around the middle of our age and career, we started to stagnate. And there the problem starts because we want consciously or subconsciously looking for growth. And if that does not happen, then it started to create problem in our mind. So you need to always ensure that, yes, you cannot grow physically. You cannot grow maybe in your career, but learning something new, learning a new language, doing something that your brain gets the message that you are growing, you are learning something new. Our life is not really limited to physical and mental as most people think. A very important part of the life people forget is social emotional brain basically. Not many people think about the emotional power they have. And this approach, this framework is really thinking about your emotions separately from their logic. So yes, you have a logical brain, but try to understand how much emotions are helping or otherwise to your life, to your day-to-day working in your personal life and professional life. And also the spiritual part. The spiritual part is also an advanced level of emotional state, which can also help you significantly in your life challenges. So it is very important to understand this logic and sequence of energy management. In order to have a good emotional state, you have to have a good physique. So if you're already in your 40s and you never went to gym, this is the time to start it. Otherwise, it will be too late. So first of all, your body is your career. If there is no body, there is no life. Take care of like you take care of your cars and vehicles, take care of your body. Everything is riding on it. A good physical health creates a good emotional state, which leads to the mental capacity. Mental capacity cannot come without working on your physical and emotional health. And ultimately, you reach to a level of strength. You could categorize that as spiritual capacity. Spiritual, let me explain with a quick example. and also related to the logical and emotional brain. So if I ask you, let's assume that there is a 10-foot ladder on the floor, right? A 2-foot high, 10-foot ladder long. And if I ask you that, look, if you walk this ladder, I'll give you $20. Would you walk or not? Of course, no brainer. You say, okay, I'll walk it. You'll walk it, and I'll give you $20, right? Okay. Same ladder, different situation. I take that 10-foot ladder to 200 stories buildings, towers, 100 stories. And I put that ladder in between, connecting the two towers, right? And now I ask you the same question. Would you walk that ladder? I'll give you $20. What would be your reply? Are you crazy? Right? Your logic says it's stupid. I question even. Why would you ask them? Okay. So we understand that. Let's take another scenario. Now, let's say that same 200-story towers, 10-foot ladder in between. You are on the one side, and the other side, on the other tower, you have your 6-year-old child who is in danger. And the only way to rescue your child is for someone to walk that ladder and bring that child back on the safer side. Would you do that? See, no brainer. Without a thought, you will do that. It's your child, right? There is a deep emotional content, rather spiritual. That is the power of emotions and spiritual. So, God forbid it happens with to anyone, but just to explain the power of emotions and spiritual capacity we have. So all those college dropout billionaires, they have a very strong emotional power to do something. Not only they change their lives, they change the world. People like Steve Jobs. Okay, so quick pointers for work-life integration, how to remove barriers. So stop thinking in terms of 9 to 5 and consider work as an essential part of life. That's number one, very important to start working on your mindset. And try to develop passion. If you're not passionate about your work, try to study more, try to look at more other things. It should be enjoyable, like your hobby. That would be ideal. Create your life mission, vision, and integrate around your work. So, for example, if you want to create a life vision or mission, that mission would not be the 5 year or 10 years I want to become a controller or a CFO. It's about your life, right? At your deathbed, you would not be thinking that how many times you met the reporting deadlines, but you would be thinking, what did I do for my children? What did I do for my family and my other loved ones in life? So think of those things. And we spend high quality of time, life at our work. There has to be some people I could trust them. So don't hesitate to make some, not everyone, but some close friends with whom you could share everything. That would give you emotional support and strength. And life integration means that we are knowledge workers. We are not sitting on a production automated belt that we can do different things. We are knowledge workers. We can do things differently. We have some flexibility. Doing some work, personal at work is fine, as long as you also compensate that by doing some work at your home. Now, I never hesitated, even when I was at the middle level, to do my personal work at work. But there was hardly any weekend I didn't do the corporate work at my home. That is how I spend my life and fulfill my obligations and deadlines. And try to maintain one calendar for your 24/7 activities, whether it's work, family, personal, or anything else. It's about your life, which is one integrated. And also, most of us are employed, but think like an entrepreneur and look at their life. I think 90% of entrepreneurs live the life of work-life integration because they cannot afford it. They cannot live like 9 to 5 schedules. Have you seen any successful entrepreneur, businessman, or even C-level executive who are very successful really living a 9 to 5 life? Now, if you have a different vision of life, then it's a different story. I'm assuming that all of you have ambition of really reaching to the top of your potential based on your capacity. This is for those people. If you think that wherever you are, it's already more than what you achieved and you're happy with that, fine. You don't need to worry about all this we are talking about. This is only for the leaders. Okay, 7 keys to peak performance. Again, more like mindset. So protect your focus. Focus is very, very critical. Most of our energy is drained because of the lack of the focus. You are working on something in your office or cubicle, someone else comes, they started to talk about something else. You're involved in something, A phone bell rings, you started to pick up the phone. This is all distraction, very common. So try to protect your focus. Recovery cycles. So this is a different area, but just a quick idea that if you go to gym regularly, you would notice that you are doing one routine, and after 8, 10, maybe 12 reps, you feel completely exhausted that you even cannot do one more, right? Then you stop there, not long, just for a minute or less than a minute. And in then 1 minute or less than a minute, you notice that your muscles are recovered. You can again do another rep with 10 or 15 lifts, right? That is how our body works. So breaks are very important. Recovery cycles, work 3 hours, then take a break for 15, 20 minutes. And don't lose your momentum. So once you are in high gear, try to maintain that during those times. That would continue to flow your energy at the high level. And develop a mindset, comfort zone, try to stretch it, try to expand it. So that only happens when you started to live outside your comfort zone. And as you would try to get out of your comfort zone, it would become easier and easier. Remember, neuroplasticity concept. And develop another approach if you really want to become a leader. Look around and solve problems. Don't look for opportunities, look for problems. And every problem, you will find an opportunity. Create value for your business, for your boss also. I mean, it's very unfortunate that many professionals compete with their bosses and don't have good relations. As a professional, you are hired to support your boss. It's your professional and moral obligation to support your boss, whether you agree with him or not. If you don't agree with your boss, then leave the job, because you are working in a system. You are paid to work in a system. If you don't agree with your boss, leave the job, go somewhere else. That's unethical. Otherwise, keep a mindset of creating value for your boss, for your business. And then finally, go for big goals and big dreams. Don't hesitate. Big dreams will give you a lot of fire and energy and mega thinking. Okay, I'm trying to speed up here just to finish in time. So basically, what drives us is not a challenge. We all have desire, we all have need, decision, willpower, determination, passion, threat, opportunity, all those things. Probably many of you are feeling right now with this conversation we are having for 1 hour, you are feeling very much driven that yes, you have the potential, you can change your life, you can change or improve the life of your family, right? It's all good up to that level. But what happens, this is motivation. Probably you will do something today and tomorrow. Motivation helps you get started, take the first step. But end of the day, it does not last long. Willpower is very weak. Motivation is very weak. Naturally, it's not your fault. What you need to do, try to convert your motivation, transition it into a habit. So habit is very strong. Now, look, we talked about going to gym a couple of times. It's a habit, right? Once you develop the habit, it's not really a challenge for you. Every morning you get up and you go to washroom and brush your teeth. You don't have any struggle between your elephant and your logical mind, whether should I do the brush my teeth today or not. It's a routine. Elephant accepted. When there is a given established routine, elephant does not question. Elephant does not question why are you brushing teeth, but elephant does question why are you going to gym? Because you never went to gym, right? So if you pass through that challenging time, 30, 40 days and develop a habit, it becomes your second nature. Now let's talk about another analogy to understand this. Developing habits. And a space shuttle, when it is launched, it consumes 87% of its fuel in the first 2 minutes. 87%, imagine that, in the first 2 minutes. Because it has to create a force to break the gravity of the earth, 87%. But once it breaks through the gravity, it floats very easily. It doesn't need much power, it doesn't need much energy. Your habit development works the same way. If you start a new habit, the first 10 days are huge challenge, first 10 days, to keep you doing what you want to do, first 10 days. The second 10 days become a little bit easier. There is still a lot of resistance, but it becomes easier. And probably the third 10 days becomes more easier. You are floating. And after 30, 40 days, it's just become a second routine for you, right? That is how the habits are developed. So you need to think, challenge is not really to change your habit. Challenge is to how to sustain 30, 40 days initially. That's the main challenge. And what happens that yes, ambition, desire, need, all good. But what makes things happen is the structure, process, accountability, support, peer pressure, recognition, reward, leadership. Now, all of you probably are working in the corporate environment, and you would see nobody is there to motivate you, right? But you do have a structure, you do have process, you do have your boss, accountability, you do have support people, you do have peer pressure, you do have recognition, reward, leadership. All these things exist in your work environment. That is how the businesses run. They don't need to motivate you. But when it comes to your personal life, you struggle, because you not only have to get motivation, willpower, but also make it happen. And it does not happen because in your personal life, you may not have a structure, you may not have process, accountability, support, all those things. That is why we struggle all the time in our personal life, and we do work in our business or work side, right? So there are a couple of steps. We are talking about mindset and behavior change, especially around the middle age. It becomes a little bit challenging. The first step is get inspired. Look at other people and identify your role models, and that would be a good inspiration. Then believe what they are doing, what those people are doing. Try to understand and believe that you could also do the same thing. Looking at your role models and try to copy is the most powerful, easier thing. Then try to learn what you are missing. So whatever you believe that you have the potential, you can learn it very quickly. Leadership you could learn, learnable skill. And finally, which is the most important, formalize. Now, first 3 steps are easier. You can do it easily. But the 4th step, execution, you cannot do without formalizing, which means that reinforcing with formal mechanism, like creating a structure, creating a process, and creating systems for it. So think again, the same analogy we talked a couple of times. You decide to go to gym, right? And next morning you struggle and you delay. But let's say that you try to create some structure. So you talk to your friend who already goes there and say, well, why can't we go together? When you go tomorrow morning, could you just knock my door and I'll go with you? And the next morning when your friend knocks your door, there is 90% chance that you would go with him, right? Basically, I started to go to gym exactly the same way. In one of my job, my controller was a bodybuilder, actually, very, very good athlete. And I saw him every day going to gym. And I said, can I go with you? And he said, absolutely. And based on that peer pressure, I said, I'm his boss. I cannot drop it now. And I started to go. And few days, it became my second habit. And it's continuing till this time. So structure is very, very important. And the other thing is, surround yourself with other people with a similar passion and mission. Now, we are all human beings. We all have emotions and social need. When we look people around us, we get a lot of inspiration. You would notice in many families that if there are 3 or 5 brothers, if there are billionaires, they're all billionaires. If there are millionaires, they're all millionaires. If they are middle class, they're all middle class. If they're poor, they're all poor. Why is that so? Most commonly, because it's inspiration. They look around, and if one brother is millionaire, everybody tries to do the same thing. Why can't I become? Or if one brother has bought a new model car, every other person try to do the same thing at the same level. So that's also a lot of power, surrounding yourself with similar-minded people. Okay, so where are we going with this? So I think I have already thrown a lot of stuff on your mind, a lot of work to do, right? Your main challenge would not be to understand these concepts and these frameworks. It all's very logical. Even emotionally, you can buy into it. The main thing is execution. Now, this is a brand new webinar I developed because I realize that many professionals are struggling in this area of personal development, personal leadership, and I need to do something. So I created this webinar so you can understand where I'm coming from and what you can do with this stuff. But more importantly, I also decided, so a lot of ideas I shared with you, right? But these ideas are worthless unless there is an execution. Ideas are 1%, plan to execute is 9%, and actual execution is 90%. So I'm giving you 1% and you have to do the rest 90%. But I can help you. So what I have decided that I want to do a 3-day in-person workshop. So I will do myself. Nowadays, as I said, I'm not doing many physical trainings in person because it's very easy, convenient for me to remain sitting in my New Jersey home and do the training coaching all around the world. Now, there are currently 150 executive level students, executive level from all corners of the world, from Australia, China, New Zealand, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Middle East, Europe, Africa, America, Canada, and Brazil. So I'm doing very well on the online. But this type of training, like what we talked about, peak performance, work-life integration, cannot be done online only. It really needs a lot of physical presence and interaction. So I have decided to do a 3-day workshop for in-person interactive training. And this would be on a weekend. So it does not interfere with your, actually, my plan is to do this in Dubai on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd December. Now, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is a long weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday is closed, I guess. So we will do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days. So it does not really interfere with your work schedules. And basically, it's not lectures I'm giving you in 3 days because I can give you lectures online. I don't need to be physically there. It would comprise of a lot of practical exercises, group-wise and individual-wise. And we'll have quick results, and that is how we'll work in a group and try to develop those things. It would be a life transformation exercise. So imagine that 3 days you are immersing yourself into this process. And I have very intensive exercises and groups. I have gone through similar training a long time before with Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is the world guru in the personal development, as you can imagine. And I've learned a lot. So some of his system I would apply here, and hopefully we'll have some very good results. So it's a life transformational experience. It's not a 3-day training workshop. And basically, in a nutshell, if I could tell you, it would close your gap where you are today, where you want to be. So if you don't take some actions now, it might be too late, and you may not realize all the fruits of that part. So 3-day life-changing experience, what we'll do, let me quickly take you through the 3 days experience, what we'll do. So first day, we'll talk about two things, two fundamental approaches. Like, look, it's not about time management, it's about your energy management. We have a very powerful framework. How do you manage your energy, not time? That's number one. And number two, managing or integrating your life, not really balancing your work life. These are the two. So we'll talk about to deeply understand these two frameworks. And then we'll go long exercise, detailed exercise on the first way. This is basically a life visioning exercise, couple of hours in different groups. And in this exercise, you would basically go through the process of personal gap analysis and goal setting. What you lack and what you could do, what is your potential, and what you could achieve in your life and your career. So by first day, you already have a clear understanding. What should be done? What could you do? What is your potential? And what you want to do. So you already created that vision. Second day, very intense. We are going to work on yourself, starting with brain. So I shared a couple of concepts about the brain functionality. We'll go a lot deeper, how the brain works and how could you use that power of brain. Now, it's not going into the technicalities or medical science. We could learn a lot of things. So and the picture you see is basically, this is what expert says, that this is our subconscious, very large, 90%, and we work with only conscious brain, which is 10% only. So how to exploit, how to leverage the subconscious 90% of our brain. Then building our habits, like highly effective leaders, expanding our personal capacity, living in a comfort zone. And then we'll talk about, on the second day, advanced career breakthrough strategy. So how to utilize all those personal power, your mindset and your right brain, emotional brain and left brain, how to translate that to advance your career through this advanced career strategy. And we'll also talk about personal branding and networking in that second day session. The third day, basically, we are talking about how to achieve peak performance. So 4 dimensions of your life: physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual, and then creating work-life integration. So your life plan going forward and identifying your values, your mission, your purpose, your vision, clarity. It's all about giving a clarity in your mind so you could focus what you need to achieve, your leadership personality. So it's also good timing. If you attend this workshop, which is on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd December, in less than a month, you are moving into 2018. And after this learning, you can basically make this next year, 2018, as a year of your transformation. Now, with this 3-day transformation workshop on a long weekend, the program fee I have kept very low, try to keep $495 only for 3 days. So you can imagine that I'm traveling from New Jersey. It hardly covered my cost. Even to make it further doable, it is also possible that you make these $495 in 3 payments of $165 each. $165 this month, $165 next month, $165 third month, and you're done.